Hello, and welcome to the Full Circle Podcast, your source for insights into the science and art of endurance sports training and racing. I'm your host, Coach Laura Henry. Today is Coach Tip Tuesday. There have been so many changes in the endurance sports space over the last several years. I've been an athlete for over 15 years and I've been coaching for more than 10, and I've definitely seen a lot of changes during that time. And one of the things that I have noticed that has changed the most is how athletes approach and think about training. This is especially true with the economic changes that have occurred in the last several years. Athletes have been seeking less expensive ways to train for the things that matter to them and still see results. One of the new and less expensive options available to athletes now is AI-generated, artificial intelligence-generated training. So the question I'm going to be exploring today is, do less expensive training options, such as an AI-generated training plan, have the same value as quote-unquote traditional training plans that are designed by human coaches? Or does less expensive actually mean cheaper, meaning inferior quality? Is AI training software actually intelligent? I think it's important to note that I'm not opposed to technology, and proof of this is that you are listening to this on a technological device. I use technology in my daily coaching life in so many ways: email, texting, Zoom video chats with athletes, and the training platform that I use, which my preferred platform is Final Surge. That being said, even though I do leverage technology in my work, I do have a level of skepticism when it comes to new technologies, and this goes for all new technologies. There are always several things that I'm seeking to feel out from a new technology. Number one, is it easy to use? Number two, is it easy to understand? And number three, is it actually helpful? My experience has shown me that it takes time to determine the true answers to these questions. And so it's not often that I will publicly adopt a new technology early. While I may test out a lot of technologies, it actually takes me a long time to endorse something as being worthwhile for athletes to use. I really need to make sure it's actually going to be valuable. So that all being said, AI-generated training plans have not yet proven themselves to me. Yes, AI is new, it's glitzy, it's glamorous. It very well may be here to stay, but this does not mean that its current iteration is one that has a positive impact on athletes or the goals that are so important to them. So what is AI-generated training? What is an AI coach? Training plans developed by AI are generated using biometrics and performance data from thousands of athletes who have individually completed millions of workouts. The platform software then uses data mining to process and sort through this massive data set to identify patterns and relationships in that data. Machine learning is also deployed to use the data and the algorithms in a way that imitates how humans learn, which gradually improves the accuracy of the software over time. Thus, the software learns, quote unquote, from that massive data set, and it compares it to the data that is uploaded by an athlete who is using the AI platform. The software makes a recommendation of training workouts for the athlete based on that comparison and any filters, preferences, and parameters that the athlete themselves inputs into the program. So for instance, an athlete will input something like, I'm a runner, I want to run 4 days a week, I want to have one rest day. There's a lot of different parameters that can be inputted. So the athlete puts in those different parameters, and then combined with that comparison of the athlete's data against the massive data set, the software makes a recommendation. And so as the athlete progresses through the training plan, the platform software will continue to assess the athlete's data and compare it to its aggregate data set. And thus it'll make changes to the athlete's training plan as it deems fit based on what the data indicates is best. Training platforms that leverage AI technology to generate training plans often sell themselves as coaches, but I honestly don't think this is accurate. AI training platforms are computer programs. And I don't think that there is truly currently such a thing as an AI coach, or perhaps what we can say more accurately, a computer coach. My definition of an endurance coach is much more expansive than what AI training platforms are currently capable of doing. Right now, AI training platforms can only process data and make data-based recommendations. So again, going back to that definition of how the platforms work, they look at the athlete's data and then they compare that to the data set. Let's be really clear here. There's a huge distinction. The software doesn't know the person. It only reads the data. This is critical, folks. It only reads the data. It doesn't know the person. An endurance coach, a human endurance coach, can also read the data. And that human can also account for all of the nuances and details of you're the athlete, your entire life, not just the data sets that are uploaded from your workouts. You can speak to a human endurance coach either in person or on the phone or via video, email, text. And that ability to communicate is probably the most critical piece of my definition of an endurance sports coach. It is via communication that a human coach can actually provide coaching, not just workout planning. It is via this communication that a human coach gets to know you, the human, not just your data. So while the term AI-generated training is what is circulating, what is honestly probably more accurate to say is algorithmically generated training. An algorithm is a set of rules that is followed in calculations or in other problem-solving operations. And while some humans are capable of processing algorithms, the vast majority of algorithms are programmed into a computer and are processed by that computer. And so the computer does the thinking. In endurance sports, humans have developed algorithms to take that data and to generate that predictive training based on those data sets. And that's what they are calling AI-generated training, like that action, that process. So simply put, AI-generated training cannot, this isn't a maybe, this is a cannot function without data inputs. In my eyes, folks, this is a major limitation, and I find it to be extremely problematic. It puts immense pressure on athletes to always record data and to always record data exactly correctly. If athletes do not do this, then their workouts will not be planned appropriately for them, since the only thing that is being utilized to plan workouts is data. Most software has a tolerance range for no or bad data for up to about 5%. 5%. This is really important, folks. This means that in a typical training situation, an athlete can forego recording data once a month if they are using AI software to generate their training. Only once a month can they forego or have a problem with their data. For all intents and purposes, all workouts need to have properly recorded data in order for an athlete to successfully use an AI-generated plan. Think about this. Let this sit for a bit. Every single workout, every single time must be recorded. And not only must every single workout, every single time be recorded, but it must be recorded correctly every single time. No mistakes can be made. You can't forget your heart rate monitor. You can't forget to zero out your power meter before you start riding. You cannot forget to use drill mode when you're doing a swim in the pool. If anything goes wrong, all of your future training will be wrong, because your future training is planned based on only the data that is recorded. How does that sound? Does that sound pleasant, enjoyable, or does that immediately feel stressful to you? I can tell you that from my experience coaching athletes, this need for exact data in every single workout is not a good thing. And I say this with absolute certainty. In my work with athletes, I only require exact data with no room for error 5 to 10 times per year for athletes who train by heart rate or power. And that's because those 5 to 10 workouts are the threshold-based workouts where we're setting the parameters by which we're going to be planning training. So that one workout has to be recorded exactly correctly so that when we base future training off of it, it is accurate. But if subsequent workouts aren't recorded accurately, it's okay, because we have inputs like their subjective feedback, their rating of perceived exertion, and I as a human coach can account for that. A program cannot. And so that 5 to 10 times per year that I require athletes to have exact data with no room for error out of literally hundreds of workouts that they complete in a year causes an immense amount of anxiety for athletes. I have had this cause so much anxiety for people that they have called off of work because they were so stressed about the workout. I have had people feel anxiety for days leading into it, have GI distress as a result of their anxiety and stress over this. So folks, I know for sure that having this pressure to have exactly correct data all the time will, not might, will cause a lot of excessive undue stress and angst for athletes. Since humans are responsible for using the devices that record data, there is always going to be a certain number of errors in that data because humans aren't perfect. This means that some of the data will be incomplete if it's not missing entirely. So, in addition to the unnecessary stress on the athlete themselves that this causes, training that is designed based on incomplete or bad data opens the door to so many undesired pathways, and that includes injury and unmet goals, which are the top two that we want to avoid. I've said this for years and long before AI was even a thought, let alone a real thing. Bad data is worse than no data. However, an AI training plan cannot have no data because if it doesn't have data, it cannot write future training for you. It also cannot decipher when the data is bad. Even if you know the data is bad because of something that went wrong during the workout, you cannot change the algorithm. You cannot speak to the algorithm and tell it to disregard the data. It cannot account for subjective feedback like that. It can't account for your feelings. It can't account for anything other than what the recording is. It's just a computer sitting somewhere in the world crunching numbers and only numbers. I think it's really important to note that AI technology has done some amazing things. A great example would be how IBM's Watson dominated Jeopardy in 2011 by beating Ken Jennings and Brad Rutter, two of the greatest players in Jeopardy history, human players in Jeopardy history. But Jeopardy and endurance sports are not the same. We already know the answers to Jeopardy questions. With endurance sports, AI is still working on asking the right questions in the first place. So it cannot actually give accurate answers as often as the humans selling it might claim it can. AI systems are kind of like savants. They currently need stable structures and narrow worlds in order to predict and operate accurately. When we know the rules and answers and they don't change over time, it's easier and more reasonable to deploy this technology right now. And that's why it worked on Jeopardy. But for something that can change, and humans not only can change, but they do, AI technology is limited in what it can actually predict accurately. Constrained, rule-bound worlds are where AI does best. Humans can adjust because we have a long-term adaptive strategy and many layers of thinking. A computer has a hard time combining many layers of thinking cohesively and pulling out the strands that are relevant in a given situation. In other words, it's challenging for computers to be adaptive. Humans, however, can combine the many layers of thinking and be adaptive. This is the secret to success in endurance, sports training, and racing, and honestly, coaching. The ability to be adaptive is critical for both athletes and for coaches. The bigger the picture, the more unique the potential human contribution is. Our greatest strength as a species is in our ability to integrate broadly. Specialization via AI algorithms can actually, paradoxically, be limiting. In more open-ended real-world problems, we humans are still crushing machines and computers. Folks, if you take nothing else away from what I'm saying here, take this. Only a human can account for the humanity in an athlete. While computers are designed and created by humans, they are not alive. They are not sentient. Well, not yet anyway. They are not capable of interacting with a human in a meaningful and authentic way. A human coach, however, can do all of these things and more. While humans are not perfect, technology, AI, also isn't perfect. Just think about how many times something technology related didn't work as you wanted to or how it was intended to work today. Just think about that. Computers and all technology are only as smart as the humans who program them. And since computers are not sentient, Computers cannot get to know you, but humans can. They can get to know you, the unique person that you are. A human can and does see you as more than just the data you produce and the data you record. A human can listen to subjective feedback and take that into account. You can express how you feel about your training to a human and correctly expect that you will be understood by that human coach. A human coach can look at your data and your subjective feedback and then see that data through a different and more accurate lens. The same human can then make predictions and plan training in a more holistic and more all-encompassing way than by using data alone. I do want to note that it is possible for a human coach to use AI technology in their coaching. However, I think there's even some caution here, as I have seen some dependency on the technology and the data by coaches who are using AI technology. In one particularly memorable and illustrative example, I had a coach who uses AI training software tell me, quote, "I wouldn't know how to be a coach without AI because coaching is hard," end quote. If a coach needs AI to do their coaching, then the hard truth is that indicates that the coach does not have the knowledge that they should have and that they are not actually a good coach. A good coach is going to leverage technology, but it will not be their supreme guiding light. A good coach can coach an athlete effectively without technology. I know this might seem crazy, especially since, like I mentioned earlier, that I do use technology in my daily work with athletes, and we live in such a technologically driven world. But yes, it can be done. It's challenging. It's true. But I've actually done it. Even in my time, I've coached several athletes over the years who either didn't record data or refused to use data. And while it was challenging, it was possible. And in fact, I'm actually really grateful for those athletes who I worked with who refused to use data or technology, because it helped me grow as a coach and make sure that I really knew my stuff. An athlete using AI-generated training indicates a trust in computers and technology over a trust in humans. Why trust a computer, which is designed by humans but isn't a human, more than you trust a human themselves? AI-generated training has burst onto the endurance sports scene with such force, and it claims wild promises of individually curated training that will help athletes reach their goals and reduce injury. But this technology is limited because of its scope and because of what it needs in order to function. It needs vast quantities of precisely and accurately recorded data. To me, AI-generated training has not yet proven itself to be anything more than a very sophisticated and nicely packaged and well-marketed equation. It's my personal belief that athletes who have goals that are important to them deserve more than an equation. They deserve authentic relationships, training designed based on all aspects of their humanity and not just on the data they produce, and someone who cares just as deeply as they do about them staying healthy and reaching their goals. That was another episode of the Full Circle Podcast. Subscribe to the Full Circle Podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like what you listen to, please be sure to leave us a rating and review, as this goes a long way in helping us reach others. The thoughts and opinions expressed on the Full Circle Podcast are those of the individual. As always, we love to hear from you and we value your feedback. Please send us an email at podcast@fullcircleendurance.com or visit us at fullcircleendurance.com/podcast. To find training plans, see what other coaching services we offer, or to join our community, please visit fullcircleendurance.com. I'm Coach Laura Henry. Thanks for listening.